All right, hello everyone. I'm Pastor Parris. I pastor Agape Bible Church. This is my wife, Chantell, and we're over at Agape Bible Church. We also have a nonprofit called A-Leaf Coalition for the Homeless, and we minister to homeless children in our community. So we have a particular commonality in our district where there are not many examples of coming across children that have two parents, are not on free lunch, have an expectation to come home without an eviction notice. That is very rare. More than likely, you are going to mentor a child who has one parent, who knows what it's like to be evicted, who knows what it's like to have a free lunch, who knows what it's like to have clothes that are not necessarily new or clean. And so when we first started in this working with children, the connection that we were attempting to make with the children was not necessarily strong. The realization of us trying to help them was not connecting. And so after a couple of years trying to figure this thing out, we finally came across this training that I'm going to show you a piece of it today. Let me preface this by saying my wife and I are not certified trainers of Ruby Pain material. We are passionate users of Ruby Pain material. So I want to preface that because and brand new, because she does have trainers that are certified and we are not them. But we are passionate users and we are large believers of her work. She is a Houstonian. She's been in Houston. She lives here. She's done most of her research here and through different school districts. And it come to find out a lot of the things that we were doing in our church and in our organization showed up in her research. And so it was a great confirmation for us that we were on the right track and are on the right track to bring in transformation in our community. I want to show you a slide that is going to help us with the rest of our time here. This is a resource slide. This is a resource analysis. And one of the things that Ruby Pain goes through is understanding that when you are dealing with children at poverty, and when you think about poverty, I don't want you to only think about money. Just think about a lack, because you can be in a poverty situation. If you're so wealthy, you don't know the difference between cause and effect. There's a child that went through affluenza, who was able to get acquitted because he's so wealthy, he did not know what his actions would do when he ran over people. That's poverty. It's just not wealth poverty. It is, in some of her research, she talks about poverty. One of the signs of poverty is not being able to connect cause and effect. And so you can be so wealthy that you have that. You can also be so poor that you have that. This behind me here is a resource list. And in this resource list, when you work with kids, specifically in our demographic, now I'm going back to poverty, right? In our demographic, her training talks about when you get a child, find out what their resources are so that you can figure out how to help them. And in this list, there is one resource that is head and shoulders more important than all of the rest of them. Do you want to guess what it is here? Can y'all see that? You want me to read that for you? So you have financial, emotional, mental, spiritual, physical, support systems, relationships, and knowledge of hidden rules. Relationships. In her research, she did this research for 30 years. And in her research, she found out or discovered that relationships was the number one resource that a child needed to be able to escape a mindset of poverty. And without those relationships, failure was pretty much guaranteed. And so let me just briefly talk about what these resources are. So, of course, financial resources are, what you and I are probably used to. You know what you're going to eat today. You know what you're going to cook today. Most of us buy groceries for 2 weeks in advance. You know that your rent's going to be paid. You know you have a car note. So when you're dealing with a child, you may want to listen for clues. Does that child know what he or she is going to eat? If they do, you could check that as a resource. You can go to emotional resources. Emotional resources is how are they able to deal with things in the classroom, being called out in a class, being embarrassed by a teacher. And our teachers need as much training as children. Teachers need to be trained to de-escalate in the classroom. And not every time a child acts up are they The sole cause of being that, and these kids today, and I would even suggest probably back a while ago, are not emotionally ready to respect any adult that they see as disrespecting them. They're going to stand up for themselves, and that will come across to the teacher as send them to detention, send them to SAC, send them to ALC. And so are they emotionally ready? Are they mentally ready? They're both connected. Do they have the mental capacity, not IQ? What is their home environment? Do they have a home environment where it's set up to mentally respect someone who's in authority? And then she talks about spiritual. And in her research, she doesn't mean spiritual like we would think spiritual Jesus Christ. She means spiritual as far as, do these kids understand that there is a higher power and they have a destiny? And so when you talk to a child, you can ask them questions like, what do you want to be when you grow up? In A-Leaf, I can just tell you, if you want to cry about something, in A-Leaf, I can tell you what the children are telling us. And of course, this is not 100%, right? But the kids that we mentor, what they're telling us is they want to be prostitutes because they get to drive a Mercedes. These are 6th grade, 5th grade, 8th grade. They want to be a mistress because they don't have to buy anything. The young boys, I want to be a rapper. Why? Because I get to have a mistress. I mean, it's all connected. That's not a spiritual mindset. They're not controlled by a higher power and acknowledgement of a destiny. And so those are things that you can say, okay, we need to help give them that resource. That is a resource for them to be able to know my life is guided by something. And you can lead that into Christ, but to get them off of the thinking that, baby, that Mercedes doesn't have to cost you your body. It doesn't have to cost you your life. And the same thing for a young man. And then she talks about the physical resources. Are they eating? Are they clothed? Many times a kid will act up in a classroom. They're hungry. How many of you have been hangry? Right? I mean, these kids suffer this every day. And sleep. What we have found out, and we knew this before Ruby Payne, many of the children are sleep deprived. You have a kid that's constantly falling asleep in your class. That is not only a sign that they're hungry, they may be suffering transitional homelessness. It is a huge sign. We've learned that since we started our nonprofit, A-Leaf Coalition for the Homeless. If you have a child that's constantly sleeping in the class, it can be a sign that they're living in a car or in a hotel, or they just got evicted a week ago. They don't know where they're going. They're not sleeping.
Or they're somewhere just not safe.
Yeah, or they're somewhere not safe. And so do they have their physical needs? The next one was a support system. Who is their support system? My wife and I are ministering to a family now that their support system was a sugar daddy. And she had daughters. And so their daughters are learning what they need to do to get stuff paid. That is not a support system. And this is the advantages of understanding this, is every child will go through something. What is the support system that you may find in Katie? Well, mama has lawyers. That's not a support system. I can do whatever I want and dad's lawyer is going to come help me. That's not a support system, but those kids may think that. And so, like I said, her research, don't think about poverty being poor. Think about poverty as far as what's missing. What's missing. And so you may find in some of the wealthier districts, the children may act the same exact way as a child that's experiencing a financial poverty, but only because their support systems are different. I know that if you try to write me up, my dad's lawyer is going to sue the school, or all these kind of things, and so I can act however I want. I'm gonna get out of trouble. I'll give a little bit about relationships. Relationships is somebody said here today, I forget who it was, but somebody, maybe it was at our table, we were talking, what they do is they give the child an opportunity to have someone they can talk to outside of their family group. That's a relationship, especially with children who are dealing with these kinds of things. You want to be able to find out, is there a relationship in that child's life that can give them a resource to help them with future things? You want to make sure the child is able to have causality in their mind. Can they connect cause and effect? Can they understand an action today means something tomorrow? And what her research helps bear out is relationships make that happen. Relationships is a large part of making that possible to children who have no relationships. Think about when we were growing up. Our relationship, most of us were our parents. And our parents taught us, if you don't have those dishes done when you get home, this is going to happen, or you're going to lose the video game or the TV. Most of the children we deal with don't have a relationship that will teach them cause and effect. And so when you go into a school and you mentor the children, the best relationship you can give them is to help them understand those things slowly as you build a relationship with them. It's the number one resource according to her research, and we have found that to be true with the boys. We have a ministry house where we have homeless kids living in that house, and we have found that to be true with the boys living there. That once you build that relationship with them, you earn the right to begin to talk to them about cause and effect. And then the last one, of course, is the knowledge of hidden rules. Hidden rules are when you grow up in a certain demographic, whether it's poverty, whether it's middle class, whether it's wealth, there are rules of behavior in each of those levels that, unfortunately, when you go home, those rules are applicable. But in the classroom, those rules don't apply. For instance, when you're at home, if you're growing up in poverty and you're at home, you better not let nobody mess with you. You better stand up for yourself. If someone looks at you funny, you better fight. Those are hidden rules of poverty. But the problem is that most classrooms don't have those rules. All classrooms, right, shouldn't have those rules. All classrooms, that rule doesn't apply. Right, and so the issue is why are those kids bringing those rules in the class? And there needs to be something, us or someone else or a school district to teach them, you don't have to bring those rules here. In the classroom. In the classroom, you're safe. In the classroom, those rules don't apply. No one's going to mess with you here, at least in my classroom, those types of ideals. I want to stick to this idea of relationships. And again, her training is largely more vast than what we're talking about in the 20 minutes that we have. But in the talk about relationships, I want to talk to you about deposits and withdrawals. So in building a relationship, before you can ask the child to do anything, you have to deposit relational activity in that child to build trust in that young person. Because if you're going to ask this young person, think about what you just did. Can you change that behavior? Before you ask of them something, you have to deposit in them some things. And her research bears out that some of the best things you can deposit them is seeking first to understand them. Now, they may be wrong, but just understand them. Understand why they said that to a teacher or why they did that to a child. It doesn't say agree, but just seek to understand it from their viewpoint. And in that sense, you are depositing in them trust. You're depositing them, I can talk to her, I can talk to him. Keeping your promises. If you tell a child something, adults need that. Kindness and courtesies, clarifying expectations. This goes back to relationship of helping them learn cause and effect. When you get into a child's life, one of the best things you can do for them is tell them what you expect from them. What you expect from them. I know you're smarter than how you're behaving. I know that your grade doesn't have to be this low. You can do better than this. Clarify that and constantly reinforce those expectations. Loyalty to the absent. Yeah, come on.
Y'all know this. You just got to think about it in your own personal relationships. If you're talking to someone and you're talking about another person behind their back, that person can assume that when you leave that conversation with them, you're going to talk about them behind their back. And so the way that you get trust from anybody is that you never do that. And so they'll know if gossip comes to you, that's the dead end for the gossip. And when they see that, then they know they can trust you.
This is big because what my wife and I learned was when this happens, you'll start to get young girls tell you, my mom sells me. I mean, I'm just telling you what we've gotten. When they know that you're not going to gossip about their situation, these young boys and young girls, they'll open to you. And that relationship is only there because you've deposited it into them. And they know that you're not going to, that kind of thing that they grow up in. And so it's important that we carry that there. Apologies. So, how many of us haven't offended someone we've mentored? It happens. And so being the one that says, look, man, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you that way. you know what, I'll do better, or I didn't know, however that sounds, but apologize to them and make it right. I mean, how many times have we apologized to our kids?
As often as we needed to.
Yeah. There's no perfect parent and there's no perfect mentor. But they need to know that you are able and ready to mend a relationship. And then the last one is open to feedback. Some of these kids you may find have very, very smart ideas on how to help other kids. And so as you listen to what they're saying, give them feedback. Let them give you feedback, and you let them know that's a great idea. Let's try to do that. Some of these kids are very entrepreneurial minded. I mean, if they can make a lot of money doing what they're doing now, selling candy. There's kids at our school sell candy and buy their own school clothes, own school supplies, selling little blow pops and little gum. That it is a business mind. And so what you want to do is try to figure out how to get them to start thinking bigger. And some of their ideas, you tell them, well, I'll support you as you write out a plan. I'll support you as you do it. And so you're open to that. Okay, so mediation is where you are a mentor, right? You're coming to a kid is with you. You want to help that child understand the what, the why, and the how. The what is the stimulus. Most of us, when we mentor children, you're not going to mentor the valedictorian of your school. Most of us, when we go mentor, you're going to probably mentor the child that has some kind of behavior issue. You know, Burrell talks about going to the juvenile children. And most of us, when we mentor in a school, we may be mentoring a child that may end up there. Our goal is that they don't. So when you talk about the what, you're talking about the stimulus. Why are you? What happened? Why did you get the detention? Why did you get sent to ALC? And you allow that child to talk to you. All right? The next thing you do is the meaning. You talk about the why. Okay? So that's the what. What happened? Now, why did you act that way? Was there a better way you could have acted? The how. The strategy is that you begin through your relationship to allow them to have an opportunity to connect what they did to what's happening. What you're going to find out is many kids blame the fact that they're getting in trouble. They'll blame it on someone else. The teacher doesn't like me. The principal doesn't like me. Listen, they're not lying to you. The ability to connect cause and effect is absent with this population. With wealth, extreme wealth, and with extreme poverty is what her research bears out. This is not me. This is her research, because they've not been able to be taught by anyone. My own actions have a direct impact on what happens to my life. And so through your relationship, you want to talk to them about what's stimulating them. Why are you getting a detention? Why are you getting sent to SAG? Why did you hit that girl? Why are you doing this? How could you have responded differently? The how or the meaning. And then the how, the strategy. What did you do that caused that? Does the teacher really not like you? Or does she not like the fact that you're talking in class? Is it you, or is it the behavior? What's the rule of the class? Don't talk. Okay, so did you talk? Yes. Well, what is the consequence of talking? Detention. Oh, so is it you, or is it what you're doing? You would be surprised the light bulbs that go off when you go through relationship and teach them this cause and effect strategy for mediation. Their behaviors begin to change, conducts begin to change, U's and N's begin to turn to S's and E's and things like that. We've seen it. We have seen it. And in just a brief time we've been doing this. I'll give you a small example. There was a boy at our ministry house. His name was Chris. And he came to us. He was acting in a particular way. And it was so bad that his caregiver at the time relinquished care of him by committing suicide. And it wasn't successful, thank God. So I should say attempted suicide. And the district called us. Our partnership is such with the district was when they discover a homeless child, they call us to see if we have a vacancy. And so he came to the house. Right about the same time we started learning this. And so we decided, let's try some of this on him. So before we get him to change anything, we're going to build a relationship with him. We're going to begin making deposits. And we're going to seek to understand, why did you treat this caregiver this way? Tell us your side of the story. What happened? And he would begin to tell us his version of why he was so upset, why he was so mad. And we would understand, man, I know why you feel like that. But did you see, can I just help you understand what maybe your caregiver saw? I mean, I heard your version. Could you hear hers? And as we built those relationships, the school started calling us, what are you doing with him? He's not acting out against the teacher. What happened? And so as we started getting more of those calls, we were like, oh my God, it's working. I mean, it was for real, because it was the first time since we started working with this demographic that we had seen such a quick change. Because now, instead of us doing it by accident, it was with intention. It was with intent. And so as we started making those deposits, come on, man, tell us why you do this. I really want to know. I want to understand. And then letting them know, I don't necessarily agree with you. I want to understand. I want to understand you. I want to understand why you're doing it. And then when we started making demands on change, we began to see those demands, but only because of the deposits we made with the child. And so this process of mediation is successful.
Can we clone you and just stick you out in a
Yeah.
Before he continues, one of the parts of Ruby's research is understanding how important the kids don't understand sequential order in poverty, okay?
Oh, this.
So I didn't realize it until I heard this same kid that he just talked about try to tell me a story.
Mm-hmm.
I have to ask so many questions to understand what happened and who did what. It's like he tells highlights and pieces of the story, and it's all out of order. And what Ruby's research showed was when kids in poverty don't hear, when it's this part of reading. If anybody knows how important reading is, when they don't hear stories, they have a difficult time learning cause and effect because they don't get the sequential order of things. And just for an example, Ruby gave this example in the research that we studied. There's this one kid in the grocery store with his mom, and he's looking for which candy he wants. And he's taking too long, and she smacks him, hurry up, we got to go to grandma's house, right? Well, there's a whole different mom in a different situation. She's a middle-class mom. So when her kid's taking too long to choose which candy they want, baby, hurry up and pick your candy. We got to go to grandma's house. If we're late, she's going to be worried, and then she's going to have a heart attack. You see the different way that a middle-class parent, I talk like that. You see the different way a middle-class parent talks to their kid? They get more cause and effect. And so it helps to develop their brain, because now they know how to figure things out for themselves.
Yeah.
But this other kid, all he knows is if I make her mad, I'm getting smacked. He doesn't really learn cause and effect. And so that's the part of what you were talking about that I was passionate about. Yeah, I didn't want to talk about other stuff.
So this is for real, y'all. I'm telling you, when we started seeing this, so many light bulbs started going off with all of the kids we mentor. Mm-hmm. It is amazing what you begin to see, because you start realizing these kids are not lying to you. They're telling you the truth based on how they
perceive
are.
it.
Yes, they're not making excuses. They're not trying to deceive you. For them, they're for real.
Yeah.
It's real for them. And it's only because of how their upbringing was. And it's up to people like us to go into that situation, go back to that resource page and figure out if I'm going to be with them, if I'm going to be their mentor, how can I strengthen the resource to help them? And your biggest research is relationship. So the last slide I want to talk about, and I know it's 2 o'clock, is this one. So one of the hidden rules of poverty is there are certain things that level in poverty, there are certain things that are important to them. And it is humor and entertainment. This is what you would see as a class clown or someone who just is not going to behave. We would say, our teachers would say, whatever, that's a bad kid. For them, this is a hidden rule of poverty. If you can be the one who has all the attention, if you can be the one who makes everybody laugh, you're the popular kid. You're the one who everyone's going to look at. The issue is that's the rule for your community, not in the classroom. And in her research, she helps everybody understand most classrooms are set with middle-class rules. Well, a child coming from a poverty neighborhood is not going to understand middle-class rules in a classroom. So it is perceived to us that he doesn't respect the teacher, he doesn't care about education, he doesn't care about the education of the kids, and that's not true. It's coming across like that, but it's only because that child is following the rules of where he or she lives.
Right.
And so we as mentors, or if you're in here as a teacher, the goal is to get them to understand the rule here. If you want success here, the rule in this class is that you follow these rules. The same thing that you want by following the rules at home is you're going to get if you follow the rules in this class. So I'm at the end of my time. I want to show you a statement that my wife and I really were blessed by reading. And that's this one. Let me read it to you. Some of it's cut off. It says this. This is a quote by Reuven Furstein. And it says, if individuals cannot develop the ability to plan, then they cannot predict. If they cannot predict, they cannot identify cause and effect. If they cannot identify cause and effect, they cannot identify consequence. If they cannot identify consequence, they cannot control impulsivity. And if they cannot control their impulsivity, they will have an inclination toward criminal behavior. And that was Reuven Furstein. Her whole research is to fix that. And we have found in the kids that we're using it with, it has changed mindsets by leaps and bounds. And we just started using it a few months ago, not a very long time. Most of this we were using already, but not with intention. We were doing it by accident. It's a miracle, you know. But now that we understand why it worked, you understand what I'm saying? We know why it worked now. It just opened us up to a whole other world of being intentional with it. And now we understand why kids are so impulsive in our area. They're so impulsive. They're so controlled by their emotions. And now we can come across that and fix it. So, thank you. All right.